Hey everyone, good evening. Thanks for joining. So this video is about how to extend your on-premises resources to Azure and still create the connectivity between them by maintaining the same IP prefix. Um, this is the document I have followed to create the extension between on-prem and the Azure. I will leave this URL in the description. Um, there are a couple of things we need to do in on-prem and in Azure. We'll try to go through each one of them. All those steps are well documented in this article, so I have not done um, anything different. Um, I just followed the steps given in the documentation. Um, yeah, so my lab setup is like this. I have an on-prem um, the environment with the subnets, like a subnet 1, subnet 2, and I have the Azure subscription with one VNet. And the plan is basically I want to move, uh, let's say, one VM from on-prem to the Azure. Yeah, and once it is migrated, I want the connectivity from on-prem to the uh, uh, to the new. Yeah, so I need the reachability from on-prem um, resources to the new VM which I have migrated, and with the same IP address. And is it really possible? Yes, it is possible. We'll just need to use the extended network module, um, and couple of the configuration. So I need reachability from subnet 1 in on-prem to the Azure with the same IP address. And also I have some app subnet, and these guys also need a reachability to the VM in Azure. So how it is possible? Uh, I will. This is just a high-level diagram, but let me show you the detailed diagram how my lab is set up. I'll just quickly go through it. So this is the diagram. I will try to attach this diagram in the same video. So on the left, I have the on-prem location. So basically, I am testing the entire thing from my home. If you go through the documentation, there are some prerequisites. You need to have a Windows Server 2022 on both location, on-prem and also in Azure. And that Windows Server 22 should have two network adapter and Hyper-V enabled, and with two virtual switch, one for the NIC 1 and the second virtual switch for the internal network, which will be the extended network. And same configuration on the Azure. So two NIC card, one NIC card is for towards the VPN gateway, and another one is to the subnet where you need the extension. So uh, adding to that, you will need to install a Windows Admin Center application in on-prem. You can install it on any of the machine other than the Windows Server 2022. So basically, you need to install it in a different virtual machine, which have a reachability to your on-prem Windows Server 2022 and the Azure subscription, meaning that internet access. Yeah. So if the access to the internet and the on-prem is ready and reachable, and then you can make use of the Windows Admin Center basically to create a tunnel, a VXLAN tunnel between on-prem Windows Server 2022 towards the Azure Windows Server 2022. So once this tunnel is built, and again, that tunnel is basically going through the IPsec tunnel. Uh, The first, the IPsec tunnel between my on-prem Palo Alto firewall to the Azure VPN gateway. And underneath that, I'm gonna form a VXLAN tunnel between on-prem Windows Server 2022 to the Azure Windows Server 2022. And once that is built through the Windows Admin Center, we can then tell the Azure extension module that it it need to allow the connectivity from the on-prem extended network, which is 10.100 towards the other side 10.100 So that is the final configuration. We will look at it each step by step, and probably I will cover the entire thing. And also for adding to the mix, I have an app subnet which is basically in 10.20.20.12. Let's say that that's the application server, and the server which I migrated to the Azure, let's say it is a DB, and that app subnet need a reachability to the DB IP, which is now on Azure. So how to make the communication, we will have a look at it as well. Let me now quickly go to the Windows machine. All right. So this is my on-prem Palo Alto firewall, which I have already configured the IPsec tunnel, and where I have, yeah, that tunnel is up already. So now we can focus on integrating the Windows Admin Center, and then the further configuration. So let me log in. So I have three VMs basically. One is the on-prem Windows 2022 data center edition, and I have a VM with IP address 10.100.2.100, the same IP address. This I have mentioned in the diagram, and I have something else, which is the app subnet. Let me look at the IP address. So the IP address is 10.20.20.tel. So after the complete configuration, we will do the testing from on-prem to the Azure, and also from on-prem app subnet to the Azure VM. So I have installed the Windows Admin Center already, just kind of an application. You can install it even on Windows 10, like I have done. So by default, you will be in this page. Let me try to remove the entire thing so I can show you whatever I have done. So if you go to the settings, you need to log in with your Azure account. Which I have done already. So this admin center now have a connection to the Azure already. And another thing we need to do, we need to go to the extensions and search for extended. I think I installed it already, so it will be on installed extensions. Extended, yeah, there you go. I have already installed this module to my admin center. So let me go to the all connections now, and I go to server manager, and let me add the on-prem Windows 2022 server. All right, so it is asking me to enter the, okay, I think I saved the password already. Let me use it. So I'm adding. Okay. So now we added the on-prem Windows 2022 server to the admin center. So if I just click on it, basically admin center let you manage your remote server, So the module which we added or installed, which is Azure Extended Network, if you click on it, it's gonna bring up a setup wizard. Just click on the setup wizard. Uh, this is some of the prerequisites which basically you need to have. You need to have a Windows Server 2022 data center Azure edition on the Azure, and two network adapter, one connected to the extended network, and another one, uh, it is an uplink which is towards your VPN gateway. And more importantly, you will need to make sure that UDP port 4789 is allowed in the in the NSG, if you have applied it on the subnet level on in Azure, and in on-prem, if you have a firewall, Palo Alto or FortiGate or VMware NSX Edge, whichever it is, you need to make sure that UDP port 4789 is allowed between your Windows Server 2022 in on-prem and in Azure Windows Server 2022, which I already done. So I'll just go ahead to the next step. So now it's asking me to choose the subnet which I would like to extend. So my extended subnet is 10.100.2.0. If I click on the drop down, it's going to give me two subnets because that on-prem server have two network adapter, one for the uplink and one for the extended network. I'm going to choose the first one, which is my extended network. All right, so here you choose the Azure components. So which I have already logged in with my Azure account. So I'll just choose the subscription, and I choose my resource group and the VNet, and the subnet, which is 10.100.2.0. It's already chosen by itself because that's the network which you would like to extend. And this is for the on-premises configuration. So here it's giving me the IP address to choose. So this is the basically the IP address which is on the Windows 2022 server. I'll just try to show you. So if you see, 10.100.2.103 is the IP address, on the Windows 2022 extended interface, and this is my uplink IP address, which is 192.168.10.10. So here I'm going to choose 10.100.2.103, and this is my uplink network. So I choose 192.168.10.0, and yeah, I think you can go next. So this is again from the Azure. I choose my resource group, and this is my VM on Azure. And the moment I choose, it's gonna bring me all the network components from that VM. So this we have already chosen in the previous page, and here this is the network I'm gonna extend. I mean the IP address of on the Azure Windows 22 VM. All right, and just click on deploy. Just verify that everything is proper. All right, so this deployment probably take about 5 to 10 minutes, and once that wizard, once the deployment is completed, the page gets auto refresh, and then you will get into the completion page, and there is another additional step which we need to do after that, which I will show you. And after that, we can do the end-to-end testing, whether the VM to VM reachability is really happening, and we can test that. Perfect. I think the pairing is done. So we got the OK message. So this is my, on the left, you have the on-premise subnet IP address. This is my uplink IP address on that Windows Server 2022. On the right-hand side, this is the uplink IP address of the Azure Windows Server 2022. So just to have a quick diagram overview. So my Windows Server NIC 1 is the uplink, which is 192.168.10.10, and the NIC 1 on the Azure side is basically 10.100.1.4. All right. So now we have paired it, but we have not we have not configured what are the IPs should be allowed in that VXLAN tunnel. So for that, you need to click on Add IPv4 address. So here it will give you an option to choose your on-prem server IP address. So in my case, I have a VM with 10.100.2.100. So I will look for that IP address here, and it shows up. So I choose it, and on the Azure side, I will choose 10.100.2.5. So that's the IP address, of the VM on Azure. So I click on Submit and wait for a few moments. It will add the IP address in the padding, and after that we can do the testing. All right. So now we have extended the IP address we have chosen, 2.100 to 2.5. So the connectivity should work just fine. So before I test, I just wanted to run a packet capture to basically to capture everything. All right, let me run it on Ethernet 1. So this is my uplink interface. I think I should be running it on the vSwitch. I don't think so. Yeah, I think it should be fine. Let me go to my on-prem VM. Let me look for the ARP address. I don't see anything, but let me see if I can reach 10.100.2.5, which is now in Azure. Okay, there you go. So after 2 request timeout, I am able to reach the Azure perfectly fine. So let me see if I can do the RDP to that machine. Oh, perfect. I got the prompt. So everything is working as expected. Let me see. Oh, so if you look at the ARP entry, now I have learned 2.5 is behind this MAC address, which is D2B3. So who is D2B3? Let's take a look at it. I go to the Windows Server 2022, IP config /all. So it is saying that basically the Windows Server 2022 is proxying the ARP. So this is the MAC address. Uh, you have seen it on from the VM, which is yeah. Yep, there you go. All right, so now this is done perfectly fine. I just wanted to add one more thing. I have altogether a different subnet in on-prem with 10.20.20.12, and this should be, able to connect to the Azure VM. Is it really possible? It is. So what I have done basically, let me quickly go to the Palo Alto firewall. I'm basically doing a SNAT. So I'm telling Palo Alto, okay, if you receive a traffic from my inside network to the, um, yeah, so this is my source address of that app subnet to anything to 2.0, do the source net with 10.100 2.99. So basically that 10.100 2.99 is the IP address which I have allocated or reserved for the SNet. So since that IP is tied with the Palo Alto firewall, um, let me go back to the admin center. If I can basically add as much IP address, which is available in the on-prem. So if I click on add IPv4, it's giving me an option 2.99 already because this IP is already tied with the Palo Alto. So the admin center is already aware of the IP address. So I just click on 2.99 and I click on submit. So let's wait for a few moments. All right. So we got the OK message. So now the newly added IP address is updated in the tunnel. So let me switch to my app subnet. I will try to ping 10.100 2.5. Let's see. Oh, perfect. So that was immediate. So as you can see, we basically extended the VM network from on-prem to the Azure, and still we can connect to the Azure VM from on-prem with the same IP address through this Azure Extended Network module. Uh, so let's quickly, I'll just try to stop the packet capture. Perfect. Let me show you. Okay, this is the last, the recent packets. So 2.99 is basically the source netted IP address by the Palo Alto. So if I choose that, it's gonna give me all the detail. Let me go a little above. I want to see. Uh, yep, 2.100. That's the Windows VM. Okay. Okay. So if you look at it, the 2.100 is my on-prem VM and 2.5 is the VM on Azure. So whenever I ping, it's basically encapsulated with the VXLAN, properties and on the UDP protocol. And the source IP address, if you look at it, this is the uplink IP address of my on-prem Windows Server 2022, and 1.4 is the Azure Windows Server 2022. So each time when I send a request, it's going to be encapsulated with the uplink IP address of the Windows Server 2022. And the reply is again the reverse. The IP address is the Windows Server 2022 from Azure to the on my on-prem Windows 2022 server. So once that is delivered, it will we can unwrap the packet and we can see the response, which is basically the ICMP response from that server 2.5 to 2.100. So another thing I want to highlight is basically let me quickly go to the portal. Um, you need to make sure that you're choosing the size as standard D2S V3. There are some other sizes you can choose, and that you can read up. You can maybe go through some prerequisite. Probably that I think this document might cover which VM size you should be using it. So initially I tested with something else, and the whole thing did not work. So I have to just remove the server and add a new server with this, the appropriate size. All right, so that's pretty much, I just wanted to share. This is the lab I have tested, and it's working as expected. So coming back to the diagram, we have the IPsec tunnel built between the on-prem firewall to the Azure VNG, and then we created the Windows server with two NIC card, enabled Hyper-V, rebooted the VM, and created two virtual switch and one virtual switch mapped with the NIC one, another one to the extended network, which is internal. Same thing on the Azure. And then with the Windows Admin Center, you basically manage your on-prem Windows Server 2022 and the Azure resources. Once you signed in with your account, you would then just follow the wizard from Azure Extended Network module. And basically, you can pair both this Windows Server 2022 through the VXLAN tunnel. So once that pairing is done, and then you can add as much IP address you have available from on-prem, so that it will be able to route the traffic. It will basically proxy your ARP. Then it will let you connect from on-prem to the Azure. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was informative. Have a good day. Bye.